Hi, this is 100 and 100, where we are reviewing 100 VR games in 100 days. Today we are looking at No Man's Sky VR. No Man's Sky VR is an adaptation from a PC-based game that is just out of this world, and the depths are just unfathomable until you start playing this game. You're not going to realize how many different places you can go, how many different things you can experience and see, all the different quests you have to complete. This game is massive, and we played it, and we are here to review it as far as we got for you today. Our VRGear game reviews cover as many aspects of the game as possible so that you can make an informed decision before you try or buy a VR title. No Man's Sky is a really fantastic title, and we're excited to jump in and review this one for you today. So let's start with getting up and running with No Man's Sky VR. This game can only be purchased on the Steam store, and the regular price is $59. Sometimes there's discounts that are running, but most of the time it's going to be a $60 game, and this is one of the few games where we actually feel good about spending that money because of how high quality this game really is. If you're on the fence about it, go look at all the other reviews on this game and just trust that this one is worth the money, even if it's not part of a subscription. The download file for this game is 8 gigabytes, but that can balloon up to a lot more as you continue to progress through the game and more content needs to be downloaded so that you can move through the worlds. Once the installation is complete on Steam, the game should install automatically and you should be up and running in the game menu. Now, there's so much going on in this game that you're going to feel like you're in a tutorial for over 30 minutes. But fear not, the tutorial that you're in that is teaching you how to interact with your suit and with your inventory and with your weapons and with your mineral detector, all these things that you're learning how to do are crucial to your success in the game. So don't look at it as a tutorial that you have to get through that is obnoxious, but think of it as crucial and helpful to give you the foundational skills that will enable you to succeed as you continue to play No Man's Sky. You'll play this game from the first-person perspective the entire time, and you're able to see your hands and your body, and you're able to see your weapons, and when you're inside of a spaceship, you can see the control panels in front of you. You'll play the game from the first-person perspective the entire time. No Man's Sky is an adventure quest type game that will have you progressing through a storyline that is very thoroughly mapped out for you. And there's a lot of branches and side quests and different things that you can do in this game, and there is literally no boundary to where you can go and what you can do here. As a result, your quest is never really complete because there's so much that can be done and accomplished. The theme and story for this game is immense. The theme is space exploration, and you're a spaceman in your spacesuit, and you start off on a very dangerous planet that is too cold for you normally, and so you have a special suit that needs to be recharged, and you need to be kept safe, and you need to reconstruct a broken ship. The story of this game unfolds as you play it. So you're not told the entire story up front. You're given bits and pieces as you go. And there seems to be an identity crisis that you have as the first player in the game because you don't know where you came from, and neither does the person who you seem to be following around for the first half hour. Once you get into the game, you'll start to realize that there are hidden gems and clues throughout every single side quest and mission that helps you as you progress. Overall, this game has a very rich theme and a very detailed story that you get to experience in VR, and it's very well done. For controls in this game, there is a lot going on, and it takes a while to get used to what you need to do and where things are. There might be some moments of frustration early on in the game. I know there was for me because of certain items that you need to collect or certain equipment that you need to charge with certain minerals that you need to find. And all of this is in some sub menu that you need to go to that's on your left arm using your right controller, or your right arm using your left controller, and it's a sub menu that you need to find. All of this combined to make the controls something that really are important to master, and it takes a good amount of time to do it. And that's why I say the tutorial might seem like it's going on forever, but if you're exposed to the raw nature of the game without having the tutorial to guide you through with baby steps, you're going to have way more frustration than if you are just patient with the tutorial, learn what it has to teach you, and master the controls and the menus as you progress through that first level. For music and sound, this game is very immersive, and you are able to hear a background track that is very subtle, but it's there, and the sound effects are very detailed. From interacting with plants on the ground and spaceships in the air, you're also able to see animals, interact with them, birds in the sky, what look like deer or dinosaurs on the ground. You hear them, you can shoot them, you can see them squeal or try to run away. All of the sound that was programmed into this game by the developers was very well thought out, and it's very detailed. Overall, the sound and music is a very immersive and fantastic experience for No Man's Sky. Player movement in this game is similar to the traditional teleportation type movement, which allows you to move long distances without having to walk there. Your primary movement mechanism is teleportation, and there are slight problems with this when you need to move to objects that are really close to you, but not so close that you can reach out and touch them, because you end up teleporting past the mark, or you teleport and you're facing the wrong direction. This can get frustrating, and I think if you've been in VR quite a bit, you probably ignore this inconvenience, but it is an inconvenience nonetheless. Moving in short distances in a game that has primarily teleportation movement mechanisms can be quite frustrating. And this game, it's no different. There is that frustration. But overall, the teleportation is pretty smooth. Instead of just illuminating off in the distance where you'll land, it lobs what looks like a glowing orb, and it takes some time to travel to where you will eventually land. And so if you are trying to teleport down a hill or off a cliff, it takes a good amount of time for that floating, glowing orb to make its way to where you will land. So you can't teleport until the orb lands. Sort of a different twist on teleportation, but it is still a teleportation movement mechanism for this game. Another movement mechanism that was totally unexpected was that you can fly a spaceship as well. So most games have one movement mechanism, or they have standing or sitting positions where you pivot. This game has teleportation, plus it has flying. So at the end of the first phase, you're flying a spaceship off of a planet, and you have to master the controls of a spaceship. And it's strange because you need to hold on to the thruster and the joystick that aren't really there. So you can see them, but you can't really feel the resistance that they would normally give if you were in an actual cockpit. But you are flying, and it is very responsive. At first, I thought pushing and pulling would do the trick, but it's actually more of a tilting of your wrist that caused the aircraft to respond. I kept forgetting, but you do fly as well, in addition to teleport when you're on foot. For motion sickness, this game falls victim to what all the other games fall victim to when they employ teleportation or player movement through a virtual world. And there's no avoiding that. The game developers, of course, have tried to make the experience less jarring when you are moving, and that's why I had mentioned the glowing orb is lobbed and you have to wait for it to land. The reason for this is that it increases the delay between movements. And if you've been in VR, you know that it's very important to space your movements out if you are teleporting around, or else you will start feeling sick very fast, and then you can't stay in the game very long. As a result, this game does have a high potential for motion sickness, especially if you're trying to move a lot. We found that because you can move a lot in a short distance with teleportation without having to wait for the delay for traveling long distances, you still become subject to motion sickness in short distances. In addition to the frustration of not having a really great short distance movement mechanism in place, it makes for a very confusing and disorienting experience when you are trying to move. You can get motion sick and you can get disoriented when moving short distances. For environment and immersion, this game has no equal. This is a very expansive game and it is incredibly immersive. The environment is very detailed. And it's not just the visual detail, it is the detail that has been put into the interaction that you have with each element in the environment, from plants to rocks to animals to equipment to materials that need to be gathered, and including your suit that you are living inside of that needs to be maintained, and your health. Oh, and there's weather that you need to be aware of, and there's shelter that you need to go and acquire to keep yourself safe. There is so much going on in this game, and the environment is so immersive and rich that you'll get lost in this game. And the only reason I left was because I started to mess around with moving short distances far too quickly, and that caused some motion sickness. Had to take the headset off for a good amount of time to reorient myself. But this game is one that you will get hooked on, and you will want to spend hours and hours. Some people have spent days playing this game and replaying different quests and have really come to love No Man's Sky because of how rich the environment is and how immersed you get into this VR game. All right, now let's look at the overall scorecard for No Man's Sky VR, starting with theme and story. We're giving this game a 9 out of 10 for theme and story. This game has a very expansive story. It is very in-depth, and I'm pretty sure it's extremely long once you get through all of it. The only thing that could be added, and it is a small thing because a 9 out of 10 is a really good score, is some sort of prologue that gives you a little bit better on-ramp to the game itself and to the story that you're joining. Outside of that, the story is incredibly engaging. The theme is just really intense and really immersive. So a 9 out of 10 for story and theme. For controls, we're giving this game a 7 out of 10. There is a lot going on in this game, and there's a lot of menus, and there's a lot of things that you need to be aware of as a player in order to succeed. As a result, the controls become a very important part of the gameplay. And getting up and running with those controls takes a really long time. The tutorial section of this game can take up to an hour if you're going slow, less time if you're going fast, but there is a lot to learn here, and it's really easy to forget. If you haven't spent time in the game recently and you want to go back, you might have to go do the tutorial again to get the controls fresh in your mind. The controls for this game are getting a 7 out of 10. For music and sound, we are giving this game a perfect score of 10 out of 10. The detail that went into developing all of the different sound effects, all of the different materials and animals and objects that you interact with all have their own unique sound signature to them. And being in the game, you feel like you're there. And the audio has a huge impact on this. No Man's Sky did a fantastic job in the music and sound department, and we are giving it a perfect score of 10 out of 10. For player movement, No Man's Sky gets an 8 out of 10. That is a really great score for player movement. It adopts the traditional teleportation mechanism for movement. The short distance traveling is the one issue that we have with this game, and moving around a chest that needs to be opened or a component that needs to be collected became cumbersome, and it was not very easy to do. However, there were some mitigating measures that were implemented by the developers, like reaching and grabbing and pulling on something with your controller with sort of an extended grip that they've incorporated, so that mitigates it to a degree. That's why we're still giving it a high mark of 8 out of 10 for player movement. For motion sickness, this game is getting a 7 out of 10. Now, there's a lot of things about motion sickness that game developers can't avoid, but that doesn't mean they get free points for motion sickness if you will get motion sick playing their game. No Man's Sky is no exception. This game does employ the teleportation movement mechanism, and it requires you to teleport and change direction while moving. And all of this is done while you are physically stationary in the real world. This is exactly what causes motion sickness. So mitigating this is a huge job for game developers, especially when they're trying to have a massive experience that is immersive like No Man's Sky. Still, there are games that are getting a 1 out of 10 on motion sickness, and they're trying to do teleportation as well. So a 7 out of 10 for motion sickness in this game is a great score when there is so much going on with player movement, including the flying of ships. So a 7 out of 10 for motion sickness in this game. Finally, we come to environment and immersion, and we are giving No Man's Sky a perfect score of 10 out of 10 for environment and immersion. This game is unparalleled. There is no peer that can stand up to No Man's Sky's immersion and expansiveness and the desire of a player as you're playing the game to stay in the game and continue to experience what the game has next for you. This game is one that you will not only come back to, but you'll stay in for hours at a time. You will love No Man's Sky because of the environment and how immersive this game really is. And now the overall score for No Man's Sky VR is a very high 8.5 out of 10. This is one of the best scores that we've given, and this game is very deserving of it. We had a great time playing it. We spent hours inside of this game, first understanding and mastering the controls, which can take some time, and then really interacting with the environment and learning more about the planet and the materials that we have at our disposal that we need to use, collect, refine, and just leverage to move on to the next quest. This game is one that is so rich and so engaging. We really recommend that you try this one out, even though it has that higher price tag. There are deals, look out for those, and maybe get it when it's cheaper. But it's typically $59 on the Steam store. This has been 100 in 100, where we are reviewing 100 VR games in 100 days. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so that you can be notified tomorrow when we release another VR game review. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.